Angelina Jolie. She's got quite the resume when you take a look. Oscar winner, action star, tabloid headline. But it's an earned resume. And it's fair to say, depending on who you ask, Angelina Jolie is either Hollywood royalty, a wild card, or a full-blown, well, I guess headline magnet is a polite way of putting it. But you can never say she took the easy route. It's also fair to say that unlike most actors I've covered in this series, her rise was relatively fast. But it wasn't nepotism, as most people seem to think it is. In fact, I wouldn't have included her in this series if it wasn't so interesting. Let's see if she got famous, eventually. Her first film role, Looking to Get Out, all the way back in 1982. She was 6, just a bit at the end. The real star of the film, Jon Voight, her dad. So yeah, she had an open door, and she had a name. But she didn't walk through that door that opened for her, she kicked it off the hinges, probably with that smile of hers, and then walked the other way. And this is why I think she deserves a mention. Angelina, along with her brother James, didn't get a pass into an acting career. You could even argue they got into acting despite their father. They were estranged early on in life. Both would claim that Jon Voight had abandoned them early in their lives and hadn't been kind to the mother. She trained at the Lee Strasberg Theatre and Film Institute in Los Angeles, spending about 2 years there in her mid-teens. It wasn't a long stay, but she learned method acting, did some modelling on the side. Not an unusual path. But her first real screen time would come via music videos. First of all, she began starring Longing at the Beach and Antonello Venetti's Alta Maria. It's all very dreamy and tad confusing, or artsy if you like. Then in a Lenny Kravitz video for Stand By My Woman. Well, she was supposed to be the lead, but the director wasn't so keen at the time, so you can barely see her, if at all, really. Clearly, she wasn't famous yet. But she was working, learning how it all worked and came together. Everyone starts somewhere. Her first real film role would come in 1993 in the form of Cyborg 2, Glass Shadow, a straight-to-video sequel to the original Cyborg that came out in 1999 starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. It wasn't great, and nobody was asking for more. She was quite lucky, as Cyborg 2 is pretty much a sequel in name only. There are a few tenuous links to the original thrown in at the beginning, but they're an afterthought. It wasn't really written as a sequel, they just borrowed the name some credibility. And yes, Angelina is one of the leads. She plays Casella Cash Reese, a prototype android designed by a mega corporation to seduce competitors and then self-destruct. Basically, a literal robotic sex bomb. It also stars Elias Koteas, Billy Drago and weirdly Jack Palance. Guess he needed to pay his mortgage or something. Well, I say he's in it, it's mostly just his lips you actually see. Probably took a day to do his bit. You do see him eventually and briefly. Angelina was 17 when they shot it, and in order to film some scenes she had to emancipate herself from her parents and become a legal adult. With hindsight, probably one of the first true signs of her doing things her own way. The production was cheap, the effects were dated even by standards at the time. It's awkward, tone deaf, and tried to be philosophical without actually understanding what it's saying. Angelina rarely speaks about the film now. She has mentioned that she actually enjoyed making the film, making special mention of her enjoying the action side of the role. But she's also mentioned she tried to quit acting after seeing the final cut. She went home in tears. It'd be a year before she auditioned for another film. She had brief thoughts to reprise her role in Cyborg 3, but it didn't work out and they continued a character story with someone else. There's actually a whole bunch of movies related in some way that follow Cyborg 2 if you're interested. I never got past the third personally. I guess what matters here is that she did the work. If you manage to pay attention to it long enough, you'll see how the intensity should carry over into later roles. I mean, okay, our acting left a lot to be desired in places.
What is it?
I've been activated!
Uh-oh.
What? What's going on?
I was afraid of this.
But she was young, it was her first film and she wasn't exactly surrounded by talent to play off. Even this early, she was committing to her roles, no matter how absurd the setup. Of course, if you want to buy the film these days, you just have to look for her face on the cover because, yeah, it's almost a rite of passage in itself. She survived it, just. After that, the 2 short videos listed on our IMDb page, Alice and Viral, along with Angela and Viral. Both are acted by Steven Schoenberg and tossing 4 minutes between them. Not much is known about them at all, but they exist. You can find them here on YouTube.
7:48.
Obviously they exist for a reason known to someone, but I couldn't find anything I'd like to quote here.
Alice, casually smoking, has no intention of telling Viral when his 3 minutes underwater are up.
With all that, she disappeared back into the safety of music videos for a while. If we're channel hopping in the early 90s, you might have caught her in the music video for Widespread Panic's Wondering, or the Lemonheads' It's About Time, albeit briefly. And the final one for the era, and probably the most commercial, Meatloaf's video for Rock and Roll Dreams Come True. In 1995 it was time to try luck again and Hack us up with the next foray into the limelight. Angelina played Kate Acidburn Libby, a sharp-tongued, razor-smart teen hacker with attitude. She was the follower to the lead character played by a young Johnny Lee Miller, Dave Murphy, aka Crash Override or Zero Kills sometimes.
What the hell is going on?
Who on the roof must have a leak?
Acidburn wasn't a damsel, a sidekick, and not a love interest in waiting. Well, she was kinda, but she made her work for it. To the competition, she was the best of the best, defending her title from the cheeky little upstarts like Dade. The film also starred Matthew Lillard. Yeah, that one.
It's a scream, baby!
Fisher Stevens is in on the action as well as a couple of other faces you may or may not recognise. It was fairly easy to miss on first glance, to be honest. Neon lights, rollblades, ridiculously fast typing, all the usual computer hackering nonsense you get sold.
There's a new virus in the database.
What's happening?
Replicating, eating up memory. What do I do?
Type cookie, you idiot.
But what most people didn't know, the film had done its homework. They brought in real hackers, freakers, sysadmins, white hats, and anyone who had half a clue what they were doing. Sure, it looked like a music video half the time, but the actual hacks, the concepts, they were grounded in reality. Zero-day exploits, password brute forcing, social engineering, even corporate ransomware style theft. Stuff the public barely understood in 1995, but would be everywhere 10 years later. The film didn't land with critics or with the box office, but it did become a cult hit in the early days of the internet. It reached the people it was supposed to reach, those who knew, and they got it. Before Reddit, before people even called themselves geeks unironically. Hackers as a film spoke to them. Angelina Jolie's casting wasn't safe and it wasn't polished, but it was smart. A young, sexy woman speaking their language.
Risk architecture is going to change everything.
Risk is good.
Oh yeah, that'd work. Back then there were even acid burn fan sites. I remember them well. They were the typical hacked together neon background, Comic Sans coloured love letters to a character who felt real in a world that didn't. Some might have even had flying toasters. Glorious. You can't find them anymore, and I did look. They existed in that weird corner of the early internet before everything was archived, before everything was permanent. GeoCities, Tripod, Angelfire and the rest. Shame that stuff's gone now. The film is far from gone though, even now. People still quote it. You'll regularly see the rallying call.
Hide the planet! Hide the planet! Shut up and get in the car! Hide the planet!
In certain parts of the World Wide Web. She married her co-star Johnny Lee Miller not long after, and this would begin to cement her wild child image further by turning up in her wedding dress in black leather pants and his name written in blood on the inside of her wedding dress. The blood was safely withdrawn with the medical meal, so you know, safety first. The marriage wouldn't last long, they'd separate a year and a half later. It'd give the press something to chuckle about. All kinds of stories would start to circulate about her liking the wilder side of things. Knives, tattoos, partying, the usual. She wouldn't do anything to defend herself in the press, she'd played up a lot. Then came the wilderness years where Hollywood tried to work out what to do with her. A blur of made-of-TV movies, oddball indies and forgettable thrillers, which was always the most interesting thing on screen. I dipped back into the music video territory with the Rolling Stones. All one-off roles, odd scripts and nothing that stuck. But then Gia came along in 1998. Well, a HBO biopic about Gia Kajani at least. Gia was one of the first supermodels and tragically one of the first public figures to die of AIDS back in 1986. The story wasn't pretty, it was addiction, breakdowns and silence. The role reflected this, it was pretty raw and brutal watching, a long way from anything that could be called glamorous. Angelina didn't hold back, she didn't soften it, she would throw herself into it. For the first time people stopped seeing John Wick's daughter, they just saw her. She won a Golden Globe, but it was HBO so not everyone was watching. Well, the tabloids were, as always. As she went up to collect her Golden Globe, she shared a kiss with her brother James, who'd come along to support her. It raised eyebrows. But the mother had been seriously ill at the time, and depending on who you asked, that moment was either weird or just finally showing love when things were hard, like they tend to do. The tabloids ran with it, turning it something it wasn't because they couldn't just help her celebrate, they just wanted to knock her back into a place. They always did. Over the next few years, she shared all the public displays of affection with him, often with a cheeky twinkle in her eye just before she did. She knew she was doing. In 1999 came Girl, Interrupted. She wasn't lead, but it didn't matter. As Lisa Roll, a charismatic sociopath, she bulldozed through the film like it belonged to her. She was dangerous, compelling and unforgettable. She literally stole the film. Winona Ryder got the top billing, Angelina got the Oscar. But then of course the tabloids would drop little hints about her personal life and it not being that different. It was perfect fuel for the fires. Also in 1999 would come Pushing Tin, a black comedy about air traffic controllers of all things. John Cusack, Cate Blanchett and Billy Bob Thornton would also star. Angelina played Mary Bell, while unpredictable and magnetic. Not a huge role and again not a lot different from public persona. It wouldn't be hard to make it hers. Behind the scenes, well, that's when things really took off. She and Billy Bob Thornton met on set. He was older, engaged to Laura Dern at the time. That didn't last. A year later, he and Angelina were married in Vegas wearing jeans. They wore vows of each other's blood around their necks, and suddenly everyone had an opinion. Some thought it romantic, others thought it was nuts.
Well, I'm not Snow White, am I?
But it was peak Angelina Jolie, intense, impulsive and unapologetic. This was enough to feed the tabloid machine for years. And Billy Bob, he'd be around a little while longer, but this was still her story. I kind of think she fed it a bit. I mean, there's more to it than I can go over here, this is just the greatest hits. But she'd have been more on the way what she's doing and how it would have played out. The studio system would kick into a not too metaphorical high gear with films like Gone in 60 Seconds. She'd conquered the geek and crazy demographic, now she was growing queen of the petrol heads as well, followed quickly by original sin and taken lives. They were stylised, steamy thrillers, but ultimately forgettable. There was no denying it though, she was becoming a star. But the critics weren't forgiving an easy ride yet, and the press, they just wanted the chaos. But Angelina didn't back down, in fact she doubled down. In 2001 she was handed a dream role, Lara Croft in Tomb Raider. Lara Croft at the time was a true icon, a video game character that had broken all the rules and become a success far beyond what anyone could have seen coming. All eyes were on who was going to bring the British legend to life, and there was more than a few eyebrows raised when Hollywood lined up Angelina, an American, for the role. The accent was dodgy and the plot made no sense.
See a world in the grain of sand.
None of it mattered. She became Lara Croft. For those that cared about the games, they were sold, including me. I saw the film at the cinema. There's one part where I mentioned being attacked close to the beginning of the film. Lara's relaxing doing a home gymnastics routine and, well, Naomi breaks in, stealing artifacts she's in possession of. For just the briefest of a second, she jumps up into the corner and the camera settles on her face as she's assessing the situation. For me, the rundown, she was Lara Croft. The film made money, a lot of it. Suddenly she was a global name again, and she was back on the message boards, and the people who'd been fantasising about Afterburn all those years ago were updating their sites to Lara Croft fan sites. But the tabloid sneering didn't stop. They were still painting her as unstable, risky, too much. Her brother James was still around too. They'd always been close, especially after the mom's health getting worse. He was often on set to support her, and so of course, that's what you read about. They mostly ignored that her dad was there as well. He took on the role of Lara's father, which would have thought was more interesting for them, but no. But she had other things to worry about. Behind the scenes, things were starting to shift. Her marriage to Billy Bob Thornton was beginning to fall apart. In 2001, he put out a song called Angelina as part of his singing side gig, but they quietly separated in 2002. No fireworks, no press statement, just over. And if they won't say, then we won't ever know why either, despite what the tabloids would have you believe. She carried on working, Life or Something Like It would come the same year, a quirky rom-com where she played a platinum blonde news reporter questioning her life choices. It didn't set the box office on fire, but you could see her trying new things, going in different directions. After the breakup, things started to change. The image, the press, the purpose. She started to disappear from the tabloids and show up in refugee camps instead. Suddenly, she wasn't just an actress, she was becoming something else. She never stopped working or taking risks, getting some critical praise at last. More awards, more nominations, less tabloid attention. I guess even they knew better to try and knock a humanitarian image. Then came Mr. and Mrs. Smith, both a hit and a scandal. The birth of Brangelina. The tabloids were of course ecstatic. She didn't get buried in it though, and instead rose above it and just ignored the noise. Since then, she seems to have slowed down with her film work. Instead of staying on the carousel, she started picking projects that meant something, sometimes small, sometimes personal, sometimes both. The Good Shepherd, A Mind to Hurt in Changeling before donning her action star hat again. She starred in Wanted in 2008, loud, slick and unapologetically over the top. Angelina wasn't just playing an action star this time, she was the action star. While everyone else was trying to copy The Matrix, she made something cooler just by showing up. I mean, okay, it copied The Matrix a little bit, but it wasn't on its own. Wanted was both violent and ridiculous. She grounded it with her presence. The kind that makes you believe that bullets might really curve just because she wants them to. It was a one-and-done film, no sequel and no franchise, much as people wanted one. She went off radio for 2 years before coming back with Salt. Originally written for Tom Cruise, the studio retooled the entire film around her, which kind of says it all really. It wasn't campy or flirtatious, it was a hard-edged straight spy thriller. For anyone still stuck on the tabloid image, Salt shut them up. But after that it's been mostly smaller roles. Well, if you don't include Eternals, which is about as big as they get, that Marvel machine just attracts everybody. In 1996, when she was doing the interview around Sparkers, she told Empire magazine that she kept getting offered action movie roles, but they wanted her to wear her hair short and wear little tank tops, but she always wanted to be more feminine than that. She got her wish, all at once. Lara Croft, Salt, Mrs. Smith, Wanted. I mean, if nothing else, there isn't anything wrong with making wishes come true, right? Sure, there's been lessons as well on a couple of other bits and pieces, but for now, she seems to have accomplished what she wanted to achieve. Angelina Jolie didn't get here on charm, she didn't write her name. She paid her dues in weird films, bad press and unfair headlines. Didn't burn out or fade away, never played the PR game, didn't explain, didn't argue and didn't apologise. And eventually, the tabloids got bored. She outlasted them. Angelina Jolie just stopped needing to prove anything, walking away on her own terms before anyone could write the ending for her. And maybe that's the most unconventional rise of all. If you like this video, let me know by leaving a thumbs up and subscribe as well if you want like that. If not, don't worry about it, I'll be here anyway. Anyways, I've been Paul, and Angelina Jolie was famous eventually. Thanks for watching.